From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to have all of y'all with us here this morning, Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. We've got a busy show today. The show's focusing mostly on China. And the reason I say that is because everything in the headlines over the last 24 to 36 hours really points to the Chinese cyber activity. And it's critical as practitioners to understand that. Also, yesterday at RSA, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke to cybersecurity people about cyber diplomacy. And nonetheless, I've got a lot to say about that. There's a whole few articles written about it. We're going to be discussing that on this morning's show. So thank you all for subscribing. I really appreciate all of y'all being here. If you haven't checked out our Substack, please make sure to do so right now. All of my exclusive writing goes only on Substack. jamesazar.substack.com is where you can find all of that. Additionally, and really, please make sure you're following us on social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Give us a follow and a subscribe there. Make sure you're turning on your notification bells to be notified every time we go live. Most of these shows are live when I'm in studio, and even when traveling, I do my best to make sure these shows are live. So without further ado, a tradition of the show is a coffee cup cheers. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Good double espresso. Let's kick off this morning's show. We've got a lot to talk about, including MITRE now sharing details on the most recently disclosed breach a few weeks ago, including the new malware involved in the attack, attribution information, and a timeline. MITRE, one of the largest and most effective R&D centers on behalf of the U.S. government, revealed on April 19th that attackers had targeted its networked experimentation, research, and virtualization environment, also known as NERV. This is an unclassified collaborative network used for research, development, and prototyping. Again, critical to say unclassified because if it was classified, this would obviously be larger in scale. Unclassified lets you know that most of the work there was being done open source within the community. The attackers gained initial access through the exploitation of the Ivanti Connect Secure VPN device 0-day CVE 2023-46805 and 2024-21887. These 0 days were leveraged by a group linked to China, and Mandiant labels it as UNC 5221. In targeted attacks for weeks before their existence came to light, Ivanti released mitigations. Obviously, this does not look well for Ivanti. On January, initially, MITRE said the attack occurred in early January, but it's now given a better evidence. And obviously, once you do forensics, you come out to a whole lot more. Initial access was December 31st, New Year's Eve, when the attackers exploited the 0 day for initial access. On January 4th, they started profiling the environment, they interacting with the vCenter and ESXi hosts. Subsequently, they successfully logged into several accounts within the NERV via RDP, leveraging hijacked credentials to access user bookmarks and file shares to gain insights into the network architecture. The next day, they started manipulating VMs and established control over the compromised infrastructure. They then deployed some malicious payloads, including a vCenter backdoor named Brickstorm and previously unknown web shell named bflush by MITRE. On January 11th, the day after the 0 day came to light, the attackers deployed another web shell named Wirefire and started preparing for data exfil. And again, you look at the timeline before it was announced, the day it was announced, they started exfiltrating data. And then they added another, on January 19th, added another web shell named Bushwalk. MITRE only discovered the intrusion in April. Between mid-February and mid-March, the attackers maintained persistence in the NERV environment, attempted lateral movement, but failed to pivot to other resources. The organization is widely known for its attack, defend framework. But here, there was that. Again, this will likely go down as an Ivanti, not a MITRE issue, but an Ivanti issue that MITRE suffered. In other news, the city of Wichita in Kansas is under a ransomware incident with its system being down as of Sunday morning. In an alert, the city said that several of its systems were encrypted with malware, forcing officials to disconnect and shut down some as a way to prevent it from spreading. Residents should expect online service outages, but the city didn't specify what services are impacted and for how long they will be. They joined cities like Birmingham, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida. So, this is one of those where if you're in IT or security or you're a resident of a small city, you wonder, you go, why would anyone want to target us? Why would anyone want to go after Wichita, Kansas? Pensacola, I can understand. There's a lot of naval stuff going on there. Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, I've been to Beham. It's a nice city. Don't get me wrong. Alabama's a great state. But why are you targeting those municipalities? Because they pay, because it's easy, because for cyber criminals, it's a distraction. It's a way to cause and inflict pain. And by the way, if they don't get paid from you, they're going to get paid by their host nations for doing that. Because again, the data they exfiltrate, the data that goes out there becomes data that our adversaries use to mine against us. So there's that. You're never too small to be a target. Just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and move to a few vulnerabilities here. Citrix appears to have quietly addressed a vulnerability in their NetScaler ADC and gateway appliances that gave remote unauthenticated attackers a way to obtain potentially sensitive information from the memory of affected systems. This was not a series of Citrix bleed. If y'all remember, Citrix had a whole issue right before COVID. In fact, almost 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. Now, this is CVE 2023-4966. It's a critical zero-day vulnerability in the same two technologies that Citrix disclosed last year, according to researchers at Bishop Fox, who discovered and reported the flaw. It's not a series according to Citrix, although CISO was among the many that are urging their people to patch their Citrix environments to the latest version as soon as humanly possible. Boeing and Comcast Xfinity were among several major organizations that were attacked due to this 0-day. So there's that. More so, the recently uncovered cyber espionage campaign targeting perimeter network devices from several vendors, including Cisco, may have been the work of China-linked actors, according to new findings from Census. Dubbed Arcane Door, the activity said to have commenced around July of last year, with the first confirmed attack against an unnamed victim detected in January of this year. The targeted attacks orchestrated by a previously undocumented suspected sophisticated state-sponsored actor, Storm 1849er or UAT 4356. Again, I hate these double names. The malware was dubbed Line Runner or Line Dancer. The initial access pathway used to facilitate the intrusion has yet to be discovered, although adversaries have been observed leveraging to now patch flaws in Cisco's adaptive security appliances. Those are CVE 2024-20353 and 20359er to persist Line Runner. Telemetry data gathered as part of the investigation has revealed the threat actors' interest in Microsoft Exchange servers and network devices from other vendors, according to Thales last month. Census further examined the actor-controlled IP addresses, said the attacks point to a potential involvement of a threat actor based in China. No surprise there either. A closer monitoring of the sinkhole IP address has revealed the worm's presence in more than 170 countries, spanning 2.49 million unique IP addresses over a 6-month period. A majority of the infections have been detected in Nigeria, India, China, Iran, Indonesia, the UK, Iraq, the US, Pakistan, and Ethiopia. Many of the nation, excluding India, are participants in China's Belt and Road Initiative and have, for most of them, coastlines where Chinese infrastructure investments are significant, according to Sequoia. So we'll see how this all turns out. FBI Director Chris Wray testified before the House Select Committee yesterday on the Chinese Communist Party in January as he painted a chilling picture of a foreign adversarial cyber agents pre-positioned in networks of U.S. critical infrastructure operators ready to strike at a moment of Beijing's choosing. China's hackers are positioning on America's infrastructure in preparation to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens and communities if or when China decides the time has come to strike, telling members of Congress that those warnings has a ring of truth. They've already seen what can happen when smaller attacks carried out by far less capable threat actors. Hence, look at Colonial Pipeline or look at Change Healthcare. All of those matter. The urgency in Ray's message was meant to be a wake-up call for lawmaker and snap those responsible for managing U.S. economic and critical infrastructure out of complacency. Complacency is key. We are way, way too complacent. Now, we've got leaders screaming, whether or not you like the FBI or not, whether or not you trust the FBI or not, has nothing to do with the fact that Director Ray's warnings, followed by CISO Director Jen Easterly, and then General Nakasone, have all been screaming from the top of their lungs to be heard. China is a major threat to our infrastructure. They can shut it down. They could shut it down for days, potentially weeks. We're not built for that. I'll give you a prime example. During COVID, during lockdowns, toilet paper became scarce. Imagine what would happen when you don't have electricity, when you don't have running water in your home on our critical infrastructure. Imagine what that does to the American economy and the American community. And knowing that China uses TikTok as another way to influence that, imagine that, right? There will be some stuff that comes from that, but there's that as well. I've got this story here twice, but I'm going to go with the Cyber Scoop version here. Yesterday, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken addressed the amazing crowd that's sitting at RSA talking about digital solidarity, a concept by which if we just build just an international coalition of responsible technology, then by all means, we shall defeat our enemies and we should shame them into working with us in order to stop all of this cyber stuff. It may have been the most disconnected speech at RSA. Just saying. This is literally the U.S. policy. It's been the U.S. cybersecurity policy in diplomacy since President Obama. So now we're going back, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 2012? So 2012, go back 12 years, right? In 12 years, this hasn't worked. Blinken gave an example of the response of Russia's invasion into Ukraine, saying, when government and tech companies collaborate to provide technological assistance to the government in Kiev, that there is a way to do technology diplomacy. You really kind of had Congress put a whole bunch of sanctions, and then you force these companies to comply to those sanctions, or they would face jail time. It wasn't exactly a collaborative approach. It was, we're going to sanction the Russians. You better follow through, or else. I mean, that's literally what you did. There was no collaboration there. Nice twist, but that didn't happen. You really went after these organizations. Monday's strategy lays out 4 areas for American diplomats to pursue in order to maintain and promote an open, inclusive, and secure digital ecosystem. I can't stop by laughing. Align their technology governance work with partners in a way that respects human rights. Encourage responsible state behavior online, including by discouraging cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. How? Here's the question. How? You don't say how. They just say, we're going to keep talking about it. Director Ray, Director Easterly, General Nakasone, anyone with an ounce of understanding that's not a lifelong politician understands that all of these are empty words, and words mean nothing unless there are actions. And if you put action areas in parentheses, because there is no action areas that you're doing specifically to detract our enemies from attacking our infrastructure, you really breed weakness. And then obviously they're backpedaling on the whole idea of this TikTok thing. I wrote a Substack on it. It's free. You can go check it out. jamesazar.substack.com. Why the TikTok ban in itself is actually really bad. If they do it to TikTok, they do it to anyone else. If I'm an entrepreneur and I look at this move, I'd be a bit concerned about the state of the U.S. government's approach to business at this time. You could do a lot of different things. You could ensure better data privacy. You can have better laws around TikTok to instead of banning it or forcing it to go under U.S. ownership. They could do the simple things: pass a comprehensive federal data privacy law, ban all data transfers outside the United States. I mean, those two things alone would essentially hinder TikTok. Regulate the amount of time kids can be on social media platforms. Require parent consent beyond a specific time period. all of those things could be helpful, but instead they go for something in an election year to try and make it an election item. That's the only reason they're doing that, by the way. Unimpressed with what Secretary Blinken had to say. Unimpressed. And then in more weakness, Germany has recalled its ambassador from Russia for just a week, by the way. It's just a week. Come home for a week, take a vacation in Germany, then go back to Russia because we're angry. The Germans are angry because Russia, you hacked us, and we're going to recall our ambassador for a week, but he'll be back next week. But in that week, you won't have anyone to talk to. Lower staff will still be there. Everything will go on. It's just a fake show of force. Putin sitting around, sipping his tea, laughing. That's literally what this is. And again, weakness. And finally, I won't get to this, but the link is in the show notes. A great piece in The Hill by Anna Sharabina, who's an opinion contributor from a few days ago, about how much do U.S. businesses lose due to malicious cyber activity. I think a great piece, something that I read, really enjoyed. Urge you to read it. I know we're out of time, so I'll just keep it at that. Go check it out. It's in the show notes. It's the last link there. You can go and check it out. Thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of this week at RSA for everyone attending. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.